What happened to MMA prodigy Roger Huerta? Huerta was a budding star during the UFC's boom period in the early 2000s. Most of you may know him as the first MMA athlete to grace the cover of Sports Illustrated. The cover titled Too Brutal or the Future, Ultimate Fighting, America's fastest growing and most controversial sport. Huerta was pictured landing a kick on Leonard Garcia in what was an epic fight. Standing at 18-1-1, 3-0 in the UFC with an SI cover, Huerta was poised to be at the forefront of fighters who led MMA into the future as the title insinuated. So what happened? Before we get into what happened with Roger's UFC career, we have to talk about his crazy upbringing and what led him to the UFC. Born to Lydia and Rogelio Huerta on May 20th, 1983 in Los Angeles, California, Roger relocated early and spent the first 6 years of his life in Texas. His father had an affair with another woman and eventually separated from the family, leaving Huerta alone with just his mother. Possibly taking her anger out on Roger for Rogelio walking out on the family, Roger's mom became physically abusive, with Child Protective Services soon stepping in and placing Roger in a foster home after he showed up to school with bruises covering his body. In 1990, Lydia Huerta fled the U.S. with 7-year-old Roger after losing the custody battle, taking him to her parents' home in El Salvador. Lydia soon abandoned Roger after arriving in El Salvador, leaving him right in the middle of the El Salvadorian war that was ongoing at the time. She returned a year later just to leave Roger on his father's doorstep back in Texas. That was the last time Roger ever saw his mother. Roger's father, Rogelio, and his stepmother were just as equally negligent and abusive, with his father sending him to Mexico to live with his grandparents, his father's parents, in poverty. Roger's grandparents would often send him out into the streets to make money selling picture frames to tourists. His father would pop in and out of his life over the years, relocating him to the Rio Grande Valley, but at 12 years old, Roger's father left home and his stepmother soon kicked him out. Roger survived on the street by joining a youth gang. He often slept on rooftops and in alleyways. His friends encouraged him to stay in school at this time so he could have at least 2 free meals throughout the day. He crashed at some friends' places from time to time as well, and just before his freshman year of high school, his friend's mother, Maria King, obtained legal custody of him and moved him to Austin, Texas, where Roger attended David Crockett High School. Roger was now in a stable environment for the first time, and he began to thrive, joining multiple sports teams and becoming quite popular in school. Brian Ashford, Roger's wrestling coach, saw potential in him and supported him closely in wrestling. His English teacher, Joe Ramirez, found out about Roger's troubled past when speaking with him about his future ambitions. Already a mother of 7, Joe adopted Roger, and the tandem of her and his wrestling coach Brian aided Roger in applying for and attaining the collegiate wrestling scholarship. He attended Augsburg University in Minneapolis, Minnesota, which had one of the top NCAA Division III wrestling programs. Shortly thereafter, Roger transitioned into MMA. In 2003, at the age of 19, Roger made his amateur debut, beating Eric Pierce by TKO in the first round. He went 5-0 as an amateur in the Screen Combat promotion, winning every fight by knockout in a short 4-month span. He made his pro debut the same year, winning by TKO in the first round. At the DQ win, a draw against Joe Poke-Chop Jordan, Roger took part in the Super Brawl 36 tournament on June 18, 2004. He competed in 3 fights that night, making it to the final where he suffered his first pro loss by TKO after he injured his jaw in the first round. Roger bounced back after the loss with a 5-fight win streak over the next year before losing by decision to the future UFC vet Melvin Gillard at FFC 14 in 2005. The loss was soon overturned though due to Melvin greasing in between rounds. He went on another 5-fight win streak after the no contest with Melvin Gillard, picking up a win over future UFC vet Matt Wyman in the process. The UFC took notice of Huerta's impressive record and he made his debut winning by UD against Jason Dent in 2006 at UFC 63 and what was fight of the night. Roger TKO'd John Halverson in his next fight at UFC 67 in 2007, and 2 short months later, at UFC 69, he took on Leonard Garcia in an epic bout, winning by unanimous decision in another fight of the night. I can't do that fight justice without taking up the whole video, but both guys just went out there swinging for the fences with no regard for what was coming back at them. Go find that fight and watch it for yourselves, please. After this fight is when Roger Huerta graced the May 28, 2007 edition of Sports Illustrated, pushing secondary stories about the NBA playoffs and Prince Phil of the Milwaukee Brewers to the background. Only 24 years old with an outstanding record of 18-1-1, Roger Huerta was spearheading the legitimation of MMA in mainstream media. Remember, this is 2007. MMA was far from what it is today. I mean, just look at the title of the cover. The sport was just not too long ago before this called human cockfighting, so seeing it on the cover of one of the most prestigious sports magazines was a huge advancement in the legitimacy of MMA.
Ultimate fighting, you can do whatever you want.
Not anymore. No, it's not exactly that way.
Roger did not slow down after the SI cover TKO and Doug Evans at the Ultimate Fighter 5 finale in June, then following that up with a TKO win over Alberto Kane at UFC 74. To cap off one of the greatest years of mixed martial arts has ever had, Huerta took on Clay Guida at the Ultimate Fighter 6 finale on December 8, 2007. After getting control and outworked by Guida for 2 rounds, Huerta rallied and submitted Clay Guida by rear naked choke in the 3rd round to keep his undefeated UFC run intact, while also tying the record for most wins in the calendar year and winning Fighter of the Year. To recap all that, Roger went 5-0 in the UFC with 4 finishes, had a Fight of the Night, a Fight of the Year, 1 SI cover, and tied a UFC record in the year 2007. What a year, man. Sad to say though, this is the pinnacle of Roger's MMA career. After winning 5 fights in 2007, Huerta wouldn't even win 5 fights combined in his next 14 years in the sport. His first loss in the UFC came by the hands of Kenny Florian by decision at UFC 87 in 2008, dropping his record to 21-1. Shortly thereafter, Roger announced he would be taking a hiatus from MMA to pursue other endeavors in 2009. He fought out of his UFC contract later that year in a split decision loss to Gray Maynard at UFC Fight Night Diaz vs. Gallard. He finished his UFC run on a 2-fight skid with an overall record of 6-2 in the promotion. I believe Roger was a little overwhelmed with the other endeavors he took part in at this time, with the filming of the Tekken movie where he played Miguel Rojo, shit movie by the way, and the filming of Circle of Pain, a stereotypical early days MMA film taking place at this time. He was also dating the actress Laura Prepon around this time too. You all might know her as Alice from Orange is the New Black. Huerta did not slow down as he said he would though, quickly signing to Bellator in 2010, set to make his debut in the 8-man lightweight tournament to challenge the then Bellator champ Eddie Alvarez. He defeated Chad Hinton at Bellator 13 by knee bar in the 3rd round of the first fight of the tournament. He then lost to future Bellator featherweight champion Pat Curran in the 2nd fight of the tournament by UD at Bellator 17 in May of 2010, losing out on his chance to face Eddie Alvarez for the lightweight belt. Later that year in August, Roger was thrust back into mainstream media when TMZ released a viral video of Roger Huerta knocking out a guy twice his size outside of a bar in Austin, Texas after the guy had struck a woman nearby. Roger Huerta received a lot of praise and notoriety after this video for stepping up for the woman and displaying just how different a trained fighter is to a regular person regardless of size. The person who Roger KO'd was revealed to be Rashad Bobino, who was a 3-time All Big 12 selection at linebacker for the University of Texas, racking up over 200 career tackles for the Longhorns. Not only was the guy bigger than Huerta, but he was also a D1 athlete, which made Huerta manhandling him all the more impressive. Barely over a week after this took place, Roger was announced to be replacing Pat Curran in the fight against Eddie Alvarez at Bellator 33 after Curran suffered an injury. Possibly good fortune for being a good Samaritan, or Bellator just capitalizing off of Roger's new 15 minutes of fame. On October 21st, 2010, the non-title super fight as it was billed took place. In the fight, Roger was pretty much outclassed on the feet, with the Underground King landing nice combos and slamming a nasty inside leg kick into the lead leg of Huerta. Huerta did manage to get some control time late in the 2nd round after catching the kick, and he ended the round with a big slam after Eddie got up. Eddie came right back out in the 3rd though with that inside leg kick, and he rendered Huerta immobile. The ringside doctor stopped the fight, and Eddie was declared the winner by TKO. Roger left Bellator after this loss, and after a year away from fighting, he took on MMA's #1 asshole, War Machine, in a battle of good versus evil at Ultimate Warrior Fighting #1 in November of 2011. Sadly, War Machine controlled Roger for pretty much the entirety of the fight, and just when Roger reversed position and found himself on top, he fractured his rib, allowing War Machine to easily regain mount and rain down punches, winning the fight by TKO. Huerta must have been on the hunt for evil, because after this fight, he signed to the Asian-based promotion One Championship and was scheduled to fight alleged murderer Phil Baroni on June 23, 2012. Phil had to be pulled from the fight though after being KO'd 3 weeks prior and was replaced by Zoro Morea. This move to One Championship seemed to be a good fit since Roger had moved to Phuket, Thailand to train and coach at Tiger Muay Thai. Unfortunately, just days before his one debut, former UFC welterweight Mike Swick, who Huerta had a partnership with, announced publicly that he would be splitting from Roger in the gym. This took a huge mental toll on Huerta, as he can be seen in the interview just days before the bout, visibly upset, ripping into Mike Swick for causing a distraction on his fucking fight week, man. His fucking fight week.
On your fucking fight week, when you're fucking focused on a fucking fight, you go and try to distract me? It's cool. Like, man, whatever, dude. You could have waited a fucking week. Just waited a weekend. And then we could have discussed something like men, like gentlemen. Not like my fucking fight week, dude. This is Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Dude, I have fucking 4 days. You could have just waited 4 days, bro. Like, dude.
Roger would go on to lose his One Championship debut by KO in the 2nd round. He was now on a 4-fight losing streak, with 3 of those losses coming by stoppage. Huerta had spoken previously about taking a hiatus from the sport, but he always stayed active. That changed though after his soccer kick KO loss in his one debut. This was Huerta's first time being knocked out cold, and he took 2 years off from the sport to reassess some things. He focused primarily on coaching the guys at Tiger Muay Thai. In his role as a coach, he was surrounded by a great support system. He got joy from seeing the fighters develop, and the camaraderie within the team put him in a good headspace. The guys at Tiger Muay Thai encouraged Roger to get back in there, telling him he is one of the best in the world. With this newfound confidence, Roger returned to one championship in August of 2014 and dominated Christian Holly, getting a first round TKO stoppage. Roger's momentum was slowed a bit after he ran into a few fight booking issues with one championship, not fighting until over a year later, finally getting matched up with Koji Ando on September 27, 2015. In what is a viral YouTube short and TikTok making the rounds in the MMA sphere, you can see Roger on the bad end of one of those when the cocky fighter gets humble clips. In the fight, Huerta walked forward with his hands down laughing at Ando as he threw a teep kick, but once they started trading blows, it was Ando who got the better of Huerta. Ando went on to win the fight by unanimous decision. Roger would fight 2 more times for ONE FC after this, with his next fight probably being one of the saddest of his career. After getting outpaced throughout the fight by Ariel Sexton, Roger verbally submitted at the 108 mark for the 3rd round after taking a punch. He just didn't have anything left in the tank, and he waved the fight off himself. It was sad to see Roger appear to be a shell of himself, but thankfully Roger would close out his ONE FC tenure with a split decision win over Adrian Payne in November 2016. Before re-signing with Bellator in 2018, Roger made a pit stop in Phoenix FC, taking on Hyder Hassan in a welterweight bout. In the second round of the fight with Hyder, Roger shot it in for a takedown against the fence. As he lifted Hyder off his feet, he caught his balance and defended the takedown with numerous illegal elbows to the back of Roger's head, even opening up a cut. Roger was unable to continue the fight, and he was ruled a winner by disqualification. This would be Roger's last MMA win, as he would go 0-4 in Bellator over the next 3 years, losing to Benson Henderson by guillotine choke, Patricky Pitbull by KO, Sidney Outlaw by UD, and Chris Gonzalez by TKO. Benson just bulldozed him per his own words, as he stated he was just not right mentally in that fight. Against Pitbull, he felt great, even hurt him twice in the first round but got sloppy and overconfident, leading to the second round KO. Against Outlaw, Roger stated he did not give his body enough time to properly heal after a motorcycle accident where he thought he cracked his head 9 months prior to the bout. And against Chris Gonzalez, Roger just looked like that same fighter that stepped in the cage against Ariel Sexton, once again submitting to strikes in the 3rd round. Roger was released from Bellator on April 19, 2021, just 2 weeks after his TKO loss to Chris Gonzalez at Bellator 255. He managed to go just 1-6 between 2 stints in the promotion, going winless in his second stint. Roger had an overall record of 24-13-1 at this point, going 4-10 since leaving the UFC back in 2009, and at 38 years of age, things were looking bleak. You wonder how someone like Roger could fall off so bad. Well, he tells you. He stated multiple times that when he was on top, he lived, breathed, and slept MMA. Once he started venturing into other things, he lost focus. He also privately went through a divorce that took a huge mental toll on him during that second Bellator stint. Previous video subject TJ Grant dropped a great quote when I was researching him. He said MMA is an all-in or all-the-way out sport. You can't do it half-heartedly, and I totally agree. It's kind of why he walked away from the sport early before a steep decline in his abilities could be seen. Roger had a lot of miles on him as well, having been competing since 2003. Roger's competition have declined, even as his abilities decline, with hungry opponents and promoters trying to cash in on his big name from the UFC days, with it often being mentioned that he was on the cover of SI before when fighting.
A lot of people want to know too, is Roger Huerta the Roger Huerta that was on the cover of Sports Illustrated?
One may even start to question, was Roger even that good? My short answer to that question is yes. You can't fake his 21-1 record at the height of his career against the competition he faced, but he may not have been the top star of the UFC at the time, as many had came to the conclusion to because of the SI cover. You think back to who was in the UFC in 2007, and there's GSP, Anderson Silva, the Iceman Chuck Liddell, and so on. Why not choose those guys, huh? Well, I got a little bit of insight on that. Firstly, Roger himself said he thinks the cover was chosen because it simply looked cool, and he and Leonard Garcia, also pictured, had an awesome fight. When thinking about bigger stars you could have showcased, they were all in weird places in 2007. GSP was no longer the welterweight champion after being stunned by Matt Serra in April of 2007. Anderson Silva was coming off that weird non-title bout with Travis Lutter after Travis Lutter missed weight, and Chuck Liddell had literally just been KO'd 2 days prior to the release of the SI cover. I can't really think of anyone outside of those guys who could have graced the cover, besides Randy Couture, who had just beat Tim Sylvia to become heavyweight champ, but Randy was already pretty old at the time, and I think the author of that issue, Paul Fitchenbaum, was trying to match the title, Too Brutal or The Future, with someone young like Huerta who could possibly be, the future. To be fair, Roger did keep the ball rolling after the cover, winning his next 3 fights by stoppage in that same year. It's just unfortunate that he couldn't live up to the hype long term. Landing on that cover was no small feat though, and Roger will always be known for that as well as his fighting ability with legendary fights against Leonard Garcia and Clay Guida. A 24-13 record against stiff competition is nothing to snooze at either. At 41 years old, Roger has given himself one last chance to right the ship and hopefully go out on top. He is scheduled to take on Robert Whitefer in PFL on September 28, 2024 after 3 years away from the sport. Let's all hope Roger's in the best place mentally and physically so he can go out there and put on a vintage Roger Huerta performance.
Low kick there from Roger Huerta. Oh, that was nasty left hand.
Well, swing and a miss for Whiteford, and now Huerta smiles. Oh, left hand from Huerta.
Robert the Hammer Whiteford!
That is all I got for you guys though today on what happened to Roger Huerta, and I appreciate you guys for watching always. Peace.